right, what's up, y'all, and welcome to Teaching Tuesday. That's a little bit of a preview of coming attractions. That's a little demonstration of what we're going to cover in today's video. So this is going to be a continuation of our Essential Chords series. This is going to be part number 4. The last few weeks we did the voicings, basic voicings you need to know with the 6-string root, the variations there. And then last week we did the basic 7 voicings you need to know with the 5th string root. And now we're going to cover those variations. And I showed you some of those in that little demonstration up front. But yeah, let's get right into it. So if you didn't watch that video, definitely go check it out. It's the Essential Chords series part 3, 5th string chords or something of that nature. So we're going to just go through each of those 7 chords, just like we did with the 6-string chords, and show how we can vary them, add some different colors, some different extensions, but keep kind of retain the same shape. So we're not really going to cover any new shapes because that would make this like a 20-30 minute video. So we're just going to stick to those 7 basic shapes. So, okay, cool. So shape number 1, we have our C major 9 here. So we're actually, I'm not going to give you any variations. This is the only one we're not really going to change because it's really nice the way it is, and there aren't any great ones that I would recommend for this shape. Okay, so let's jump into shape number 2. So we have C9, okay? So there are basically 3 different ways we can change this voicing. So the most plain way is we can just add a 5th on the top. So that's just going to be the 3rd fret on the 1st string. Okay, so in that case, you're going to need to bar. If you weren't barring already on the 3rd and 2nd string, you need to bar now, and you're going to just continue that bar to the 1st string. It's a kind of like a funky chord. So it's not the most colorful extension, but it can be nice, especially like in a blues, something like that. Could be very Westish. Okay, so we got the G on the top. Now we can get the 13 on the top. If you get that pinky, if you can stretch it far enough. So that's going to be the 5th fret on the 1st string, an A. That's going to give us a nice C13, and I actually used that in D flat before that, if you caught that, and then I went to the C with the 5th. Anyways, you don't need to know that. Okay, then our 3rd extension is we're going to get the sharp 11 here. So you kind of have to finger it a little bit differently. So what I'm doing now is I'm basically doing the shape that I had in the beginning. So like 2nd finger, 1st finger, 3rd finger, 4th finger, but with the 1st finger I'm barring the 2nd fret, and so that allows me to get the sharp 11, which is the 2nd fret on the 1st string, right? So like I mentioned in some other videos, you got to be careful with the sharp 11 or any sort of like alteration, because you don't want to use it all the time. It's like only very special circumstances, mostly when it says sharp 11, like if you're reading sheet music or something like that. Or, there are other times where you have to be careful. You have to really be well-versed in music theory to know when and when not to use that chord. Okay, cool. But it's a really nice voicing. So, okay, cool. So let's move on to the next voicing, which would be C minor 9. Okay, so we're going to add an 11 onto this, and we're going to kind of keep the same fingering concept. So we're going to bar our 1st finger on the 1st fret. Okay, so the finger combination is 2, 1, 3, 4, and then we're barring that 1st finger. I also have all the chord diagrams in the Patreon, just FYI, along with the PDF. So that's a little bit hard to get, especially this far in the neck. This low in the neck, because it'll be easier higher up as the frets get smaller, closer together. But yeah, that's a really nice voicing. And And then we're gonna just do the exact same thing with the minor 6/9. We're gonna add an 11 on there. So it's a very rich chord. So again, the fingering is kind of tricky, but you just take the minor 6/9 chord that I showed you last week, and you're gonna bar that first finger to get the 11 on the top. Kind of tricky, but if you can manage it, then it's a very nice, lush sounding voicing. Okay, now we are going to switch to, I just want to make sure I go in order here. Major 6/9. Okay, so we're gonna do the same thing we did with the dominant chord. We're gonna do with this 6/9 chord. So here's our basic 6/9 shape. So we can add a 5th on the top. That's the most like plain. It doesn't really add that much color, but it is a note that's not in the chord already. So it's particularly nice like for the end of a song, you know, in a lot of like big band Frank Sinatra songs, you might hear that kind of thing at the end with a real acoustic sounding guitar. But that's a really nice voicing. Now we're just adding our pinky to the 3rd fret of the 1st string to get the 5th there. And then we can also extend the pinky like we did on the dominant chord to get the 13. Now we do already have a 13. We have a 6, right? So it's a little redundant. That being said, it's still nice. And it's a little tricky to get, but it's a nice sounding chord. Okay, and then also exactly the same, like in the exact same way we did the dominant chord, we can get the sharp 11. And that's a really nice sound. That's this chord I ended with in that little demonstration up top. So that's a C6/9 sharp 11. Say that 10 times fast. Yeah, and again, we have to bar that first finger. So some of these are kind of technically a little difficult to play, but you know, they'll put some hair on your chest. Something like that. It's gonna get me canceled. All right. So cool. So then we're gonna move on to okay, minor 7 flat 5. So we had this as our bass minor 7 flat 5 chord. So there's not much we can do with this voicing, to be honest, but one thing we can do is just take the 3rd and move it to a 4th or an 11th. So that's gonna look like this. So instead of this, it's this. So we're gonna get rid of this E flat and make it an F. So instead of the third finger getting the 4th fret on the 2nd string, you'll get your pinky on the 6th fret of the 2nd string. And you can kind of switch too. Everything just always devolves into Careless Whisper. No, but so you don't have a 3rd in this chord, but it actually doesn't really matter because your ear kind of like makes up the 3rd because it already has a flat 5 and a flat 7. So you don't need the 3rd. It kind of is already implied in the sound of the voicing. Cool. So that's like a C minor 7 flat 5 or C minor 11 flat 5 or whatever you want to call it. C minor 7 flat 5 at 11. Okay, now we're going to do diminished. So we have this diminished chord, right, that we did last time. So there's a couple different things we can do with it. So first thing is we are going to add basically a flat 6. So we did that in the 6-string voicings. So it's an A flat. So we're gonna bar, again, a little tricky here, but we're gonna bar our pinky on that 4th fret. And it's gonna get the 4th fret on the 1st string. This one you have to be careful with because extensions on diminished chords, there's a lot of different functions that diminished chords can have. So depending on where you play it, it may or may not work. So be careful. We can also just take that same voicing and take out the 4th string. So that makes it a little easier to play. And also, I kind of like the sound of that better, to be honest. There's a little bit of openness in the bottom there. Okay, and then we have So we're gonna go back to our original shape here. And instead of having a sixth, we're gonna move the sixth, so that's the note on the third string, we're gonna move it up to a seventh. So the note on the third string, instead of it being on the second fret, we're gonna jump it up to the fourth fret. So this is, as diminished chords, as a lot of you know, they can repeat. Same thing with this one. And this is a very cool chord. We call it diminished major 7. You got to be careful with it as well because like I said, diminished has a lot of different functions. But it's super cool voicing. So we just have C, F sharp, B, and D sharp, something like that. I'm getting the, probably saying the wrong accidentals, but you get the point. Cool. So yeah, that does it for us in terms of the alterations the variations we can make on those 7 voicings. That should go a long way. Those variations, as well as everything we did before, is going to get you pretty far in terms of playing tunes out of the real book, or however you're doing it. But yeah, I hope you guys found this video helpful. As always, we have PDFs on the Patreon, and they have all the chord diagrams. They are updated with all the chord diagrams, so definitely check that out if you haven't already. Otherwise, yeah, like, comment, subscribe, share, all that jazz. And thanks for tuning into another Teaching Tuesday, and I'll see you guys next Tuesday.